Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to see the details of Maharashtra MBA CET 2025 Day 3 Slot 2. So this year, the exam was conducted on 3 days and on each day total 2 slots. So overall, the exam was conducted in 6 slots. So this is the analysis of that last slot of this year. Now, if I look at a paper pattern, so across these 6 slots, the paper pattern has been same. If I look at the overall structure, that is, there are 4 sections: logical reasoning, abstract reasoning, quantitative aptitude, verbal ability, and reading comprehension, with the same number of questions as they mentioned in the information brochure, that is 75, 25, 50, 50. So this breakup was same for all the 6 slots. If I look at the overview, then total duration is your 2 hours 30 minutes, that is 150 minutes overall. For every question, there were 5 options for each question. Actually, you can select any section, so you can start from any section. So it's not necessary the order, though the first section logical reasoning, you can start with the section 2, section 3, and you can attempt any question within a section also. Fine. And as important, no negative marking for any question. So each correct answer will carry 1 mark, no negative marking if you mark it wrongly. So it is very important that you should mark all 200 questions at the end of this 150 minutes. Now let's look at the details of each of the sections. As I said, though you can attempt any section at any point of time, let me check the order as I start with the quantitative ability. Now here, if I look at the overall level of difficulty in these quantitative ability sections, first of all, you understand the difficulty level is subjective. The students who are well prepared with all the topics, for them, if you know the particular concept, then that question is easy for them. If you don't know that formula or particular concept, that question is difficult for them. So when I'm marking this easy, moderate, or difficult, I've considered into account that one, a good student or a well prepared student, when he's attempting the paper, what he will feel, the particular question easy, moderate, or difficult. When I'm classifying the questions as moderate, probably conceptually those questions were not so difficult, but the amount of time required for solving them was higher. So if I look at all 50 questions in the quant sections were based on quantitative ability. There were no questions from data interpretation or data sufficiency. Fine. Out of which I can say almost 31 questions are of easy difficulty level. 13 questions were of moderate difficulty level. 6 questions I'll say difficult, or probably some higher level concepts are required to solve those kind of questions. Now in this section, before going for the topics part, what I observe here, I found around there are 4 questions which I found for which the whatever answer I solved and I got the answer, that is not matching with the answer choices. So many students cross check 2-3 times, but still they are getting the same answer which is not matching with the answer choices. And there was none of these options also in those questions. So that way I'll say around 3 to 4 questions were wrong in this paper. So once they release your response sheet, we can again cross check those answers. Fine. Also, one thing I observe is that many questions, most of the times what happens, we solve the question, we get the answers in integers. So we mark the answer options in integers. In many questions, we found that the options were calculated or approximated up to 2 decimal point. So in many cases, that was an unnecessary time consuming part. Okay. However, many questions I found that wherever the bigger calculation is required, if you work on the options intelligently, then you would have easily found the answers. So for example, there was one question, something of 4 or 5 digit number was given, multiplied by a 3 digit number. So if you multiply this product, then it will take a lot of time. But suppose I say last digit was 8, here the last digit is 4, 8 4s are, I don't remember the exact numbers, but 8 4s are, the last digit of the product should be 2. There was only one option which was ending with 2. So that way I could have solved the easily question from the options also. So that is true for many other topics, that you are not able to find accurate answers, But if you look at the options, they were not close by, they were far away. So taking the help of the options would have saved you a lot of time. Okay. So if I look at the weightage of each topic, you'll see almost on all the areas the questions were asked. But if you see the maximum number of questions, you'll find from the numbers area. Okay. Then followed by your time and distance. And then you can see simple equations. So 15 and 5, 20 plus 7, 27 questions. Okay, from this area. So 27 questions means more than 50% syllabus is asked from just 3 topics. Okay, so numbers, there were certain questions, most of the questions you can see out of 15 questions, you can say 10 questions were of easy difficulty level, 3 were moderate, and 2 were difficult, or one of the questions required some number of ways expressing the number as a product of 2 coprimes. Okay, so that required that you need to know the formula for that particular concept, then only you can solve the question. Okay, so otherwise if you see, the questions are asked on almost every topic except those 4 wrong questions. I did not find any issues with the other questions. Okay, they were properly, the information was properly given, and with the help of that you can easily find the answer. However, whatever good you can be at the quantitative ability section, if you attempt all 50 questions, then probably will not clear get the overall score to get into top colleges. So the good strategy would have been, you can, out of 50 questions, you can attempt around 35 questions. So whichever are the 1 line, 2 lines questions, or whichever questions, there are many questions which you could have solved orally. Okay, if you observe the question, you could have easily answered the question. You could have answered those questions first, and the time consuming questions where the more amount of calculation is required, either you could have skipped them, or you could have taken the help of the options to answer those questions. Fine. So if you look at here, I can see one question was asked on stocks and shares. Again, the information given in that question was not so clear what they're actually trying to say, but that is not a regular topic where in any exam the questions are asked. Rest of all the topics, you can see that the regular topics, we as at time, we have covered all these topics at the classroom. So anybody who has prepared those handouts well should have been able to attempt these questions properly. Fine. Let me go to the next section. Now, if you remember the analysis of slot 1, there were many questions asked based on your quantitative ability part in the logic section also. The same was a case over here. Only thing that quantity was not that high in this case. So unlike whatever type of questions are asked in the other slot, the similar types of questions were asked in this slot also. So you can see the questions were asked based on analytical puzzles. Under that, selections were there, linear arrangements, comparison questions were there. You can see Venn diagram questions, direction sense, blood relations, coding decoding, number and letter series, deductions, analogies, word formation, odd man out, input output. And here you will find some question based on your critical reasoning were also asked. Fine. So here again the strategy would have been simple, because analytical puzzle part, that is the caselets part, there were around 4 to 5 caselets. I don't have exact number, but some of the caselets were doable. They were not very difficult, but some of the caselets were definitely, some of the analytical puzzle sets were definitely time consuming. So the good strategy would be that you should attempt the normal logical ability part first. That is, apart from analytical puzzles, you could have attempted this portion first. And then based on our remaining time, then 2 sets of analytical puzzles could have been attempted, because other questions were very, I'll not say easy, but they were of a moderate difficulty level, and they will have the familiar type. So even if you look at the blood relations questions, you'll find not 8 people or 9 people given. The number of people given in that questions were lesser. Even input output questions where they were just getting over in 4 steps. Fine. So that's why you should have attempted the other areas first, and then you would have, at the end, should have attempted analytical puzzles part. So that is what I would suggest for the this section. Again, considering the amount of time available, the good number of attempts could be around 45 could be the good number of attempts I will say in this section. Fine. So you can go for more attempts also, depend upon the amount of time available with you. Now, if I look at the abstract reasoning section, now total number of questions are 25. But in this 25, you can see there were 17 types of questions were asked. So what are those types of questions? 5-figure series, find missing figure in the series, 4-figure analogy, find similar figure, odd figure out, mirror image questions, water image questions, find missing figure in 3x3 grid, and so on. 17 types of question. So level of difficulty were easy to moderate. But as the more variety of questions were asked, if you had solved those questions earlier, then you know what to do in those kind of questions. So for example, many times the 3x3 grid questions are asked. So those who face these questions first time, they don't know what to do in that. So they have to clearly read the instructions properly, and then they need to start attempting the questions. So at time we had solve various handouts based on abstract reasoning. There's one handout called as a miscellaneous, based on miscellaneous types. In that, all these remaining types of questions were covered. So if you would have solved those 5-6 handouts what we had given in the classroom, then you are familiar with the types of question, then solving would have been easy. You don't need to read all those instructions to understand what they're actually asking and what I'm supposed to do in those questions. Fine. So I'll say the level of difficulty was easy to moderate. The very few questions where I will count it as a difficult category. So the good number of attempts could be around 18 to 20, could be a good number of attempts, because there are certain questions which were difficult questions. You can see, look at I can see you're supposed to count the number of triangles. Okay, so let's say you count the number of triangles. Okay, you are supposed to count the let's say in another figure, you have to choose 3 figures which will form an equilateral triangle. You are supposed to choose 3 figures which will form square. So these kind of questions were slightly difficult to handle at that time pressure. Okay, so I'll say 18 to 20 could be a good attempt in this section. Fine. Now verbal ability and reading comprehension part. Now if I look at that non-RC part, it is a verbal ability part. Now here also again all variety of questions were covered, but if you see the earlier slot 1, you'll find there are more questions on synonyms, antonyms. Here that weightage was lower. Here you'll find there were more questions on find the error, though the error was in the terms of grammatical error as well as the errors were in the terms of spelling also. But the questions were quite manageable. Okay, the questions were pretty easy. One could have easily attempted a question within a 20 seconds, just reading the question, marking the answer. Parajumble questions were there. Out of context question. Now these questions required a lot of reading. Also, the entire information many times was not in one page. You have to actually scroll down to see that last sentence. So this portion, though the number of questions were higher, you would have taken a more amount of time for solving the questions. So the good strategy could have been, you could have attempted find the error kind of questions first, then all these remaining types of questions. Okay, and then at the end you could have tried for those parajumble or out of context questions before attempting for the RC part. So overall difficulty level, I could have said for many questions it was easy. For many questions I'll say it is a moderate part. So except that parajumble and out of context part, none of the part of this area was time consuming. When I come to the RC part, now you can see there are 7 RC passages were asked. There were 3 RC passages with 5 questions, 5 questions, 5 questions, 2 RC passages with 2 questions, and 2 passages with just single question. Now, even though they had a single question on that one RC passage, the length of the passage was quite higher. It was around 200 word passage. Okay, so the good strategy could have been, out of these 3 passages, passage 1, 2, 3, the 3 passages will cover your 15 questions out of 21. You could have attended only these 3 passages. Again, attempting all 3 passages will again consume some amount of time. So probably you attempt the 2 passages, and then if you get the time, then you can attempt the 3rd passage. So that's the way you could have formed the strategy for this part. Is that fine? So that is about your verbal ability sections. So if I look at the overall difficulty level of the paper, it was moderate only. Some, as I said in a con section, I particularly found certain errors. Okay, the answers were not matching with the options. People find such errors in your one of the analytical reasoning sets also, that one of the condition is contradicting with the other condition given in the data. So once the response sheet is out, we'll be able to comment on that it was really wrong, or was everyone missing one particular condition to arrive at the final solution, that we don't know. So if I'm looking for the top college like JBIMS, then I'll say the cutoff will go 145 plus. Okay, so it will be 145 to 150 range. Fine. However, so more number of students, if I look at the what could be the 99 percentile range. So 99 percentile range could be approximately around a score of around 125 marks, because in that 99 percentile to that JBMS cutoff, there will be more number of students will be there. Fine. So depending upon the number of attempts you have done, plus whatever tukkas you have marked at the end, how many you get, you're correct, you can have a rough idea about what is the overall score you can get. However, once the response sheet is out, you will come to know what about your actual score, and based on that also we can predict the proper cutoffs for the top colleges and the other colleges also. Fine. Now once this last lot is over, we are expecting that DT will release your response sheet, probably ideally should be within 15-20 days, but we can't guarantee it, because they set their own rules. They might release after 1.5 months also. So ideally I'm expecting in within 15-20 days the response sheet. So once the response sheet is available to you, you can download it, you can solve the paper, you can check what answers your mark right, and what answers you feel it is actually answer is right but question itself is wrong. You can actually raise a complaint against that by paying some amount. So that's all from my side. Thank you.